Hey YouTube, back again with another video. This is going to be a pretty easy one today. We've got these brackets from the radiator, the ones that hold it down on the top, and then these guys, they're like front bumper support brackets. And they're right on the front of the car when you open the hood. I've already painted these, but I didn't really like how they came out. They look kind of rough and junky, and I would like them to be smooth and nice looking. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna sand all this stuff. These particular brackets, they're not quite right. The rubber doesn't sit inside of them very well. Looks like they're a little bent in some areas. They don't sit right on the radiator, which might be why they're bent actually. I think my radiator sits up a little high. Don't know if that's due to radiator support damage, or if it's an aftermarket radiator. I think it was put in somewhere in the late 90s. Maybe it's just a little too tall for the car. I don't know. I don't know the brand of the radiator. So it could be either of those things. Like I said before in another video, I am going to be replacing the radiator pretty soon here. So we will see about size, how that goes. But for the time being, I mean, I'm going to replace these also at some point, but I'd like to make them look kind of nice. So when I open the hood, it's nice to sit there and look at, instead of having to look at these. I mean, paint's all chipped off. It's in pretty gross shape. They're all dirty. So let's see if we can make these look a little prettier. I'm not gonna bore you with me sitting here sanding these things. It's gonna take forever with all these little bumps in the metal and all that good stuff. It's gonna take forever. So once I get these sanded, we'll turn the camera back on. I'll show you some more of the process. These brackets didn't have hardly any paint on them. It was very easy to sand all the paint off and get to bare metal. I just used some 150 because I'm gonna run some primer over them. And then once the primer dries, I'll use something quite a bit finer just to sand them flat before I put a final coat on them. I didn't do the backs. I don't care. Normally I would, but I'm not keeping these. These are not in the greatest shape to begin with. So I'm going to be ordering new ones eventually, probably with the new radiator. I just figured I would clean them up a little bit, make them look a little nicer. These brackets, since I already had paint on them, it's a decent base. I just sanded them smooth, got the high spots off the metal, got the crap out of the paint that was in there, and I'll run some primer over those. Anything that's still a little funky looking, I'll be able to just lightly sand once the primer's there, and that should take care of it and smooth everything out, prepare it for a final coat. Well, I just did an entire video that didn't record, so I guess it's not really a video. I just primed all this stuff, guys. It's pretty simple. Just go through, get good coverage on it. Like I said, I didn't do the insides of those. You want to get good coverage on it. Get a couple of good coats of primer on there. That way, when you go to sand it, actually, yeah, see the light kind of sucks. When you go to sand it, then you have something to actually sand without burning through and going down to the bare metal, and then just having to reprime it again and then wait for it to dry again. Not that big of a deal. One important thing that I like to always do, that I kind of wanted to show you, and I'll do this with the final coat too, is when I'm done, or when I think I'm done, I'll go through and just look at it with a flashlight, because the lighting isn't that great in here, and that's going to be the case for a lot of places. So I just go through and make sure it's covered really well and everything's the way I want it to be. And it's a good thing I did, because I found a couple of the sides that didn't have very good coverage. So that's a little tip, excuse me, that can help you out in the long run. So once these things are dry, which should be, I don't know, 15-20 minutes, I'll get the video back going, and we will get to work on prepping the surface and painting it. We're back here. The primer on these parts are all dry. We're ready to go. They're smooth. The brackets actually look a lot better than I thought that they would. They're not nearly as misshapen as I thought that they looked on the car. That may just be how they were mounted. The fact that the paint was all messed up on them. So, you know, they're not bad. Maybe they're salvageable. All we're gonna do here, gray Scotch-Brite pad. If it's a smooth part, you want to sand it down with some 400 or 600, but you do that with these, since there's so many little details and things like that, then they're probably just going to end up digging through the paint and getting to the metal. That's what we don't want, because I don't want to have to put more layers of primer over it. The paint that I'm using is just Rust-Oleum Universal Satin Black. The color looks good. It holds up pretty well. It says it's paint and primer in one. I wouldn't ever trust that if I had to, because paint and primer serve completely different purposes, and trying to combine them doesn't make sense. Even if they say it does, I think it's more of a gimmick than anything. So this one is just about done here. It doesn't take much. These things are really smooth. The primer built up real well on it. I went kind of thick on it so that it would, and it looks real good. So, you know, you don't have to do a whole lot. Let's just get inside there. Make sure that everything gets hit just a little bit so the paint has something good to adhere to, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so that's about good right there. Just scuffed just a little bit. Doesn't need much. The paint just needs something to stick to. I rubbed through a little bit there. Not the end of the world. Should be fine. I'm gonna get to the rest of these little parts. These guys, the screw heads, I'm not even gonna bother priming these, because every time you take them out, you kind of mar them up a little bit anyway. So I'll just clean them off, get all the gunk off of there, and these will get painted too, just so that they look good. We got these things scuffed up, wiped off. There's no residue or anything left on them. That's how you want them, just nice and smooth and clean. This paint, probably not the greatest, but it sticks well and it looks okay. Satin black, Rust-Oleum, it's just kind of what I had laying around, but it holds up pretty well. It says it's paint and primer, of course. Come on, let's get real. So we're just gonna do light coats. Light coats. And actually, since it is kind of dark, I'll grab a flashlight so I can see. I'm sure I'm not the first one to think of this. But when I'm painting bolts or whatever, just stick them in a piece of cardboard, just like that, see? So it'll allow you to get all the way around it, and then once you need to set it down to dry, then just set it down anyway, doesn't matter. It'll stay right there. So, and you can hold it at any angle. Boom, right there, piece of cake. I want to recoat when the paint's a little tacky, after it's kind of flashed a little bit. With these hooks, it just allows you to really tell when the paint's kind of set up a little bit, and it looks like looks like it has. So, because you don't want to touch the actual metal.
So I was the sun that slapped the rain until we all knew she'd go down the drain. Then the fruits of our labors were laid out.
Okay, now let's just do a flashlight inspection. Make sure everything has a good amount of paint on it, an even coat. Looks like it does. We're good there. Okay. Oh, that side needs a little bit. That should be good. So basically, now, just gonna sit and wait for that. Just doing these bolts real quick. Just gonna sit and wait for that to set up for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to do another coat. Now, you may be wondering why I'm not covering the car or anything like that. Well, it's got overspray on it already. You know, it's been sitting in the garage for a bunch of projects that have been going on, and I wasn't always as careful as I should have been about it. If it had a nice paint job on it, then it would definitely be covered. So, you know, I'm not too worried about that right now. Once these are all dry, I'm gonna put another coat on. Once that's done, then we'll get back to it so that you can see the finished product. And we are back. We've got the brackets all nice and finished. They look great. Nice and smooth. Everything looks good. I'm gonna wait to put these on for a little while because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, I want to let the paint cure a little more, harden up, so that when I screw everything together, it doesn't completely destroy it. Also, I clean these up too. Those look a lot better. The other thing is that the radiator doesn't sit in the radiator support properly. And actually, let's go over to the car and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is just how the radiator sits down in the radiator support brackets. I pulled the rubber insulators out just to make sure that those weren't a problem, because after looking at those brackets, they're not as bent and messed up as I thought that they were. And so I thought maybe there's an issue with the radiator. Well, I don't think it's the radiator, guys. I think it's the support. If you look, see, I'm pulling it up to the radiator support there. If you look, this side is quite a bit higher than that side. And yeah, it's in there without isolators, but it's still in the right spot. It looks like it's at least a 1/4 of an inch out, 1/4 of an inch too high on this left side. Hard to tell. I think what I'm gonna do is pull the radiator out and take some measurements and see what we've got going on. I know that the bottom of the support, or the core support, is dinged up. I didn't think that that was going to have as much to do with the top of the support, but it looks like it may. So I'll get the front end of this car up in the air and the radiator out, and we will take a look. I'll update you when we're there, but the real point was to show you the finished brackets, and they look great. And with the screw heads, those look pretty good too. So that's kind of the process of just painting small parts like that. It's really easy. Just takes a little bit of time to do it right and get it looking good. Also, one thing that I wanted to mention, wear face masks. I know I didn't. I'm not a very good example when it comes to PPE, stuff like that while I'm painting, because usually I'm kind of in a hurry and I just don't think about it, but I definitely should. You don't want to be breathing that stuff in, even when you're sanding. It's just not good for you. So wear your PPE, stay safe, and we'll catch you on the next one.